Everyone, remain calm.
Yeah, that's how it always starts. And later there's running and screaming.
Somebody talk to me! What is happening?
Welcome to Jurassic World.
You're listening to the Jurassic Park Podcast.
You want to consult here or in my bungalow? Hold on to your butts.
Well, we're back.
Hello and welcome to the 133rd episode of the Jurassic Park Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Jost, and we're here to discuss all things Jurassic Park. In this episode, we have some news to cover regarding merchandise, holograms, and a birthday dimension. After that, we head into the Innovation Center with Tom Fishenden and his guest Jurassic Collectables, where they talk about their history with the franchise and the magic of Jurassic Park. This is a great follow-up to our chat with Jurassic Collectables back in episode 30. Over 100 episodes later, back in the main show. Sorry for the delay, dude. Time flies, I guess. But anyway, they had a great chat, so don't miss it. Rounding out the show, we'll have an introduction from new segment host Justin Kiley, who'll be running the Missing Compys segment, covering as much as they can from the novels. This is just the kind of segment that people have been waiting for us to add to the show, so now Justin will be taking the reins on that corner of the fandom. Now, this segment is a spin-off of his brand new podcast, The Missing Compys, which you can find on iTunes and Google Play. I'm going to include all the links in our show notes, so stay tuned to hear from him and make sure to subscribe to his show. Alright, well, as you just heard, we have a packed episode as usual, so why don't we get this one started off with a bit of Jurassic news from around the world.
18 minutes and your company catches up on 10 years of research.
Access rate program. Access security.
These pictures were taken in hospital in Costa Rica 48 hours ago.
I don't want to jump to any conclusions, but look.
Boy, my head being right all the time.
For today, I guarantee it.
This first piece of news, actually, we wrote about it on our website. It comes from CES, the Consumer Electronics Show. It's kind of like a conference for all things technology and the newest and latest devices. It's very awesome. So this year, the company Real Fiction has been displaying their AR technology, one specifically called Deep Frame. Now, this is a mixed reality display, which is basically just a kind of a curved glass panel in front of you that displays imagery on there and makes it look like it's kind of physical and present in the room with you. Now, the reason I wanted to bring it to everybody's attention is the fact that it displayed a velociraptor on that screen. It was Blue's design, so I don't know how closely that they're working with Universal and Jurassic World and all that. I don't really know the details there, but this is obviously Blue's design. It's a very, very cool thing to see in front of you like that. It actually looks like it's physically in this room. And the cool part is that a lot of these videos and articles on this device are mentioning is the fact that they want to use this in museums. So what better than to use it for Jurassic World the exhibition? Now, I'm sure you know all about the touring exhibition with the physical animatronic dinosaurs and so much more. It would be an amazing aspect to add this mixed reality AR augmented reality device into the maybe into the Innovation Center at the end of that tour, because once you make your way through all the dinosaurs, you actually end at the Innovation Center, and it looks so great. It looks very good. It's a little small compared to the actual Innovation Center in the film, but one of those nice touches that would make that finale even better would be to add like something like this to that, which is very cool. Now, this is actually quite the expensive device, so I don't know what the opportunity is like for them to actually add that, if it's financially feasible or not. I'm not too sure, but this is something I feel like the exhibition sorely needs inside that Innovation Center. You know, after Jurassic World debuted, so many people were talking about the holograms that were in the very center of the Innovation Center, how unrealistic they were, and how it just didn't project the type of park that we're used to in these films. But now here we are, and this is getting very possible in a different way. But I think this is so cool. It looks amazing. It looks just like those dinosaurs in the film, those projections there. So I think we have a lot of hope for the future here. Head to our show notes and find that link to our article to check it out. Next up here, we have a tweet from Hedgehog's Corner on Twitter that showcases new Jurassic Park 25th anniversary merchandise inside Universal Orlando's gift shops and whatnot. So there's some really, really awesome designs here on display. I mean, really, you can't get much better than the Jurassic Park logo. They do add the 25th anniversary logo underneath that. It's got some really cool fossil designs behind it. And they actually have this design basically on mugs, shot glasses, t-shirts. It's so awesome to see this stuff actually physically in a park. And, they're really hoping to sell a lot of this stuff. There's big signs for the 25th anniversary. So make sure to head out to Universal and pick up some of this awesome merchandise. I'll include the photos in our show notes, so make sure to check out Hedgehog's Corner on Twitter. Speaking of merchandise, you may have seen on social media the past week a ton of leaks surrounding Funko, Mattel, Barbie, and Lego, all pertaining to Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. Now, really, it's kind of our rule to not cover too much of that stuff. We don't want to talk out of place or spoil anything. We've mentioned a few of these items here before, like some of the Funko stuff. Those are a lot of the classic figures that we talked about before. And we were wondering about Ellie Sattler because she seemed to be missing from that lineup of the typical folk that we see from that movie. But she is there in something that we projected back in one of our old episodes. We were kind of wondering if maybe she would be included with the Jeep for the Funko Pop, and it looks like she will be, so that's very awesome. A lot of the Mattel stuff, the toys for Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, have been leaking out. I'm not going to really talk about that. They look good, some look bad. I'm not really too sure until we actually see these products physically. It's hard to tell from pictures. Also, we have some Barbie stuff, which is really cool. I think it's really great that they're expanding into new territory with this franchise, merchandise-wise, giving girls more opportunities to play and interact with this fandom. It seems like they're really dedicating a lot of their focus towards Claire, which is really awesome. So I'm super excited to see where all of this leads. Next up, we have a lot of stuff from Lego that seemed to be leaked out as well this week. There's not much to talk about here. There's typical Lego sets. We'll see them as soon as they are officially announced. But just as a PSA, I know we're all super excited about more merchandise. It's a very awesome time for all of us as fans, but just be careful sharing a lot of those pictures and whatnot. They're all leaked materials, so they're not really supposed to be shared and not seen by the public just yet. So maybe think about it twice before you go ahead and post that stuff. And maybe spoil it for others, or just maybe, hopefully you don't get yourself in trouble posting that stuff as well. I know a lot of the companies are asking everybody to take that stuff down, so you don't want to really get yourself involved in that. This is the part where I usually say head to our show notes, check out the pictures, check out the articles, blah, blah, blah. We don't have any of that stuff, so don't look there, because we don't showcase it, so cool. So anyway, there you go. There's some information, and I hope you enjoyed that. Next up, we have a pin here from our buddy Rob J. Yeo. He actually debuted this, I don't know if it was Kickstarter, I think it was Kickstarter, where you could buy this awesome Falling Explorer pin. That thing went and sold, and it's awesome. I actually have it here right in front of me. It's a very awesome pin made of 35mm hard enamel. Depicts that Falling Explorer from Jurassic Park the Ride in Universal Studios Hollywood. So now it is available for purchase for everybody if you did miss that initial Kickstarter. So go to his Etsy page. I'll leave the link in our show notes. I just wanted to give you all a heads up because I know a lot of people were asking about it after the initial Kickstarter. So just a heads up, check our show notes and go buy that awesome pin. Lastly, here in the news, I just wanted to wish a happy birthday to Omar C. on January 20th, this Saturday. Happy birthday, dude. It was great having you in Jurassic World. You're a character that I really would have loved to see more of. I'm not sure that we're going to get that, but hopefully in the future there's some opportunities for you. Thanks again, man, and happy birthday.
Oh, there it is. There it is.
If I don't innovate, somebody else will.
Due to technical difficulties, all our exhibits are now closed.
You are acting like we are engaged in some kind of mad science.
And Zara here is going to take great care of you until I'm done working tonight, okay?
Bigger, scarier, cooler, I believe is the word that you used in your memo.
Any incidents?
Yeah, 6 kids in the lost and found, 28 down with heat stroke.
All of this exists because of me.
Just like taking a stroll through the woods 65 million years ago.
Hello everyone, welcome to another segment here on the Innovation Centre. Tonight we're doing something a little bit different. We're joined with a special guest, so without any further ado, I'm going to let my guest introduce themselves.
Hi guys, it's Jurassic Collectables here.
I'm sure anyone listening to the podcast will already be familiar with Jurassic Collectables and the fantastic work he does reviewing all sorts of different Jurassic-themed merchandise we have. So it's great to be joined by a fellow fan and not be rambling on to myself as I usually do in these segments.
Thank you for having me.
No worries, man. I'm excited to get going. So, in terms of kind of how I'd like to structure this, we've spoken a little bit beforehand, and with the fact that we're very close to Fallen Kingdom starting its marketing hype train now, we'd kind of like, I guess, to give a sort of retrospective view on how we got into the franchise, wouldn't we? And I think, actually, before we started recording, I was considering this, and I have a feeling I'm going to shock you at how late I actually got into the franchise, so I'm not sure if you're going to be ready for that, but we're going to see how it goes, hopefully.
That's okay, it's never too late to join the Jurassic Park franchise.
Right, so yeah, I guess, how did you get into the Jurassic franchise, JC?
Well, wind it back to 1993, I think, and I think I was around 6 years old, and I was in the living room. My parents were in the kitchen, so they were in a separate room, and on the TV there was a morning program, I think it was GMTV or something similar, and they had a trailer for Jurassic Park come up. It was like a promo thing.
Yeah.
And I saw that short clip, and it must have had like clips of the T-Rex. I think there was the shots of the Gallimimus in there.
Oh, okay, cool, yeah.
And I literally remember, as soon as it finished, I got up, screamed, ran out to the kitchen to my family, and basically said, I've just seen a real dinosaur on television, or the closest thing I'll ever see to a real dinosaur. And they were like, oh wow, it's this new film, I don't know what it's called, but I want to see it when it comes out. And I remember that moment, that very specific, kind of euphoria that promo clip, instilled in me. And I guess it's never gone away. And that was, I think it was the fact that I was being almost taken back in time to be able to see things resurrected from the past. And I think Steven Spielberg summed it up well when he said that to children it's kind of like mythology, but it's real. And I think that's the really unique part about Jurassic Park, is that you basically get to peek into the past, kind of maybe what dinosaurs did look like. We kind of know they look a bit different, but in fact, you just being able to see something that's from the past like that is just, it's like having a time machine.
I think in some ways as well, it's probably up until the point of Jurassic Park coming out, we really hadn't seen anything done in such a visceral manner as well. Like, you'd obviously seen cartoons and books, everything like that, but to really get those kind of brand new animatronics that at the time were pioneering technology, really, seeing them on screen was just, it was a different kind of immersion than I think we had ever experienced with cinema before.
That's right. Yeah, that's absolutely right. I think the up until that point we'd had stop motion, basically. I think we'd had some animatronics, but nothing to that sort of level where they'd really put everything into making sure that these things looked absolutely real. And then you had the advent of visual effects, which in itself was a completely new medium, and we hadn't seen, apart from Terminator 2, which was completely different in terms of its look and feel. I mean, you were talking about plasticky looking sort of CG animation, still very cool, and chrome effects, but very simple textural objects. And then suddenly you take this leap to Jurassic Park and you're looking at a tangible animal on screen, living, breathing, walking in a medium that we'd never seen before, as smooth as you like. And that was just like, whoa, it was like a shock to the senses. It is literally like we had taken a leap 20 years into the future. And the more I look back at Jurassic Park, the more I realise how innovative they were for the time, and how much they basically took their time and went, right, we're going to get every part of this as good as we possibly can to make sure that these things look real. And boy, did it pay off. I mean, in terms of the amount of, you know, when you just watched Jurassic Park for the first time back in 1993, it was like, oh my god, like, these things are real. They are really real. How on earth did they do this? This is like unlike anything I've ever seen in cinema before. And I just remember that, knocking my socks off.
I think in terms of all the, like, behind the scenes photos and things I've seen since getting more invested in the community recently, it's incredible how far they went to actually capture the real feel. Because I know, prime example being the scene with Tim and Lex, when the animatronics attacking the Explorer, it was actually really happening because it was malfunctioning due to the rain machines, wasn't it?
Oh,
that's always
really?
stuck with me, yeah. I remember reading that. So to think that, like, they went as far as saying, hey, we've got this really expensive piece of equipment, but we're still willing to go and do this to get exactly the right feel behind it, I think it's a true testament to what I think the franchise is about in terms of creating really practical immersion, which sadly later installments haven't done as well, but still I think they do definitely push the boundary in terms of trying to get that kind of hands-on level stuff that you just don't get anywhere else nowadays, to be honest.
I know what you mean. Yeah, it's still crafted.
I know in terms of how I got into the franchise, I'm a late bloomer. I was a 99 baby. So by this time, by this point, the kind of whole hype had gone past for the first film. And I think my parents were never actually really that into the franchise, unfortunately. So this is fast forward into, I think, around 2006, when I was like, off the top of my head, about 8 or 9 years old. I really got into Primeval, and that was kind of what launched my interest into dinosaurs, and then from there went out and looked at Jurassic Park and started watching the films. And I think actually it was nice to me because I watched the films at a point where there was like a 3-year gap and then Jurassic World came out. So for me, I was kind of like, oh, I've just got into the franchise, there's nothing new coming out again. Oh wait, and that was quite nice because it kind of breathed new life into something that I originally was like, okay, there's these 3 films and then I'm not going to get anything else out of the franchise apart from obviously the comics and everything like that. So to then come back and find Jurassic World was really cool.
I think it's really cool that there is a Jurassic World generation, because I feel like it must be amazing to go back and enjoy those films. You know, you said you got into it, around 2000, was it 2008, you said? And going back and watching those films, like, I go back and watch films that were made before I was born, ones that were really good, and I think, wow, this stuff was made before I was even alive, and it's better than some of the stuff that comes out today. And it's just, I think that oftentimes that increases how amazing something is when you think, at the time when this was made, this was, still amazing, but now it's great, and it was made that, that amount of time ago. So for me, I always think of films in terms of like their context when they were made, because a lot of people dismiss films and say, oh, that's really bad CG, or that's really, but then you've got to think, well, actually, for the time when it was made, this was groundbreaking, and still the story works, and that's always really impressive. But no, that's cool. That's interesting to hear that 2008. Wow.
Yeah.
So you were born the year that Phantom Menace came out.
Yeah, actually, I tell you what, my parents wouldn't let me go and see a Star Wars film in the cinema until they thought I was old enough. So I actually only saw Revenge of the Sith in cinemas. And ironically enough, that's kind of another whole story where I thought, okay, this is the end of the franchise. I'm seeing the last Star Wars film that's ever going to come out in cinemas. And
so
now obviously we got the new
6
ones.
Then, right? 6 when that came out?
Let me think. I'm 18 now, so...
So it was it 2005 that Revenge of the Sith came out?
I'm not sure, actually. Quite
I think
possibly.
It was.
Yeah, it was. So yeah, you're right. I would have been 6. So...
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I feel old.
It's all good. I'm having a trip down memory lane right now. I'm like, oh man.
Yeah, wow.
I think the thing that always stood out for me when I got into Jurassic Park as well was, obviously I came into it from Primeval, and with Primeval, the guys at Impossible Pictures did a really good job with the CGI, but then jumping from CGI to actual real, what are practically real dinosaurs was incredible for me, and I was looking at it and going, well, this film came out way before Primeval hit television screens, and yet these dinosaurs still hold up, and they're better than the CGI in a modern day program, which is just amazing for me.
It was quite interesting plotting the evolution of all that stuff, because when Jurassic Park came out, the visual effects that they did for that film was pretty much industrial light magic, and then there was Digital Domain and a few other VFX houses who were doing CGI to a level that was acceptable for film. And I've actually read about it since, but apparently what happened is they did a lot of these visual effects, and then they really tightened up how much information got out of these visual effects houses. So they tried to keep everything really secret, because they realised that as soon as this got out of the bag, everyone would be able to make CG dinosaurs.
Yeah.
And there was a real drought between like 1993 all the way through till I think it was about 1999, when things really weren't being done that well in terms of CG. You had The Lost World, obviously, which was again ILM, but you had these kind of early years of visual effects when not many houses were really doing it. And then 1999 comes around, and you've got like Walking with Dinosaurs, I mean in terms of dinosaur visual effects anyway, and you've got Framestore doing the effects for that.
Yeah.
And that was in London, so obviously things had got to a point where, you know, VFX companies in London were starting up, and Framestore did this early, you know, Walking with Dinosaurs, and things kind of went from there, and now there's loads of VFX houses all around the world.
Yeah, it's just
VFX.
exploded, hasn't it?
It's amazing, but it's funny how they kind of like tightened up all that knowledge, and then like it all got out eventually anyway. But yeah, it's just interesting to plot the evolution. And then Framestore actually went on to do Primeval from that, so they basically had, you know, pipelines in place. They'd already done lots of films. I think they were doing Harry Potter, you know, all of that. So yeah, it's kind of, you could plot the evolution of dinosaur visual effects, what was going on, what was the next big leap, and it being done in the UK for me was very exciting, because it was like, wow, they're doing Jurassic Park stuff, but here, like somewhere closer to where I live.
Yeah.
And that for me was very, very exciting. And I actually was lucky enough to visit Framestore at one point, and
awesome.
Yeah, and saw one of the guys who was in the Walking with Dinosaurs behind the scenes material and stuff, and I was like, it's him, it's the dude. And and I know a few animators who were kind of working on Primeval and doing some of the animals for that. So yeah, so it was cool. It's amazing how things have evolved over time, and yeah, it's just interesting to plot that kind of journey. I don't know whether you were into Walking with Dinosaurs at all, or...
Well, I wasn't at the time. I'm starting to get more into it now, though, because I've actually got tickets for the new live tour they're doing. So I'm going back through, and I'm like trying to look through. And actually, I was on the Impossible Pictures website the other day, and what you were saying about being able to document CGI is true, because I was looking through, and actually a couple of the assets that were in Walking with Dinosaurs then got slightly updated, and we used the same model in Primeval, which was quite interesting.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of reuse in the VFX industry. It still goes on to this day, because it's just, well, I mean, the whole thing, you know, all of the setups for creatures and things, they're all reused modules and things. So yeah, reuse is the name of the game. If you've got something that looks similar and you just need to upgrade it, then you should. I mean, that's kind of happened since the beginning as well. If you look at the Rontos in the 1997 Star Wars update, they just modified the Brachiosaurus from Jurassic Park to make those Rontos, which became a whole new creature in the Star Wars universe, and still is to this day. And there's a toy that came out for it and stuff, but that was essentially the Brachiosaurus modified and retextured a bit. So yeah, it's just interesting.
That is super cool. I never knew it. They actually used the same CGI model for that, but just updated it. That's so cool. It was cheaper to just tweak it. Interestingly as well, the T-Rex model that was used in Jurassic Park, the way that they actually created that was to laser scan a sculpt, a Stan Winston sculpt of the T-Rex, which gave them like a dense mesh, which is, you know, I don't know if you've done 3D scanning or photogrammetry or anything like that, but you get a dense mesh back. They had that same thing, so they had all this lovely data, and then they actually paid someone to go in and remove vertices by hand to create the wireframe mesh that was workable. So nowadays you don't do that at all, but essentially it's a very painstaking process. You'd have to go in mathematically and work out which points to delete and which ones to keep in order to create a deformable mesh, and that's like
it's just amazing that they actually did that.
Yeah.
It's a bit like doing it the longest way possible, because at the time that was the only way to do it. So yeah, it's pretty impressive. And also they only had about 65 shots, I think, in total, and that meant that if the shot looked bad, they could actually go in per frame and edit it in Photoshop.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah, which is quite often what they did. Same with Terminator. If stuff looked off, they could go in and use Photoshop, because obviously John Knoll and Thomas Knoll, they developed Photoshop, and he worked at ILM, and they would use Photoshop to go in and modify per frame if they needed to make it look right. So that's the kind of level of detail that they could work at. Also, that would be painstaking now. They wouldn't bother going in and changing
I
something.
was just sat here thinking, so are you telling me all my Lego Photoshop jobs could lead to VFX? But now you said that, I'm like,
oh, absolutely.
No, it's chill.
You just need a time machine, go back to 1993 and apply for Jurassic Park. I can't tell you what the software is going to be like. It'll probably be awful. It'd be like wearing boxing gloves doing Photoshop.
I'll just take my Mac back into the future and make a bunch of money. It's all good.
There you go.
So, I think an interesting thing you touched on earlier as well was when you were talking about stop motion, because I know it's been going around lately that they actually originally considered just going with stop motion for Jurassic Park, didn't they?
That's right.
Which is
that's
quite
right. Phil Tippett.
Yeah, I do find. I think it was important that they definitely went with VFX and also animatronics, because it's pioneered the shape the industry's taken so much more. Then I think had they gone with stop motion, then perhaps VFX wouldn't have got the attention it got for another few years. Because obviously, as you said, we had Terminator, but I think when people think of early VFX work, Jurassic Park is one of the things that sticks in people's minds for sure.
Yeah, it's interesting because we also don't know what stop motion would have looked like if it had happened. So because Phil Tippett always says it would have been the best stop motion ever done. And the stop motion test that we see, that everyone goes, oh well, this is what it would have looked like. No, that's not what it would have looked like. That was a animatic. That was a block for it. So some of that, the timing looks pretty good. I mean, it moves a bit fast here and there. The timing is a bit off. But what you got to remember is that's like a storyboard in stop motion. So imagine what the real thing would have looked like when Phil Tippett had kind of maybe found a way to animate the muscles flexing in the leg and stuff. It would have been amazing.
Yeah.
And I think probably it would have been digitally comped, and I think they talked about that. I think that was what ILM was originally hired to do, was to composite the stop motion T-Rex into the shot.
Okay.
And they did a great job at compositing their own CGI effects into the shot. So you kind of think, oh, well, actually it might have looked really, really good.
Yeah, especially if the quality of stop motion was as good as you're saying Phil Tippett would have tried to get it to.
That's it.
Yeah.
So we don't know, like, would the history of cinema being changed? Would we have had now two directions moving? Would we have stop motion moving at a ridiculous rate and VFX moving at the same time?
Yeah.
And probably they'd be used maybe next to each other. I mean, Phil Tippett might have changed his career forever. He might have been doing stop motion creatures all the way through the 90s or for all sorts of things.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting to think about it. But yeah, VFX definitely got there earlier than I think anyone expected to. It's a bit like they took a time machine back and did it in 1993. If we're honest, no one really caught up with it until around 1999-2000. So yeah, it is pretty staggering. But yeah, stop motion version of Jurassic Park, how cool would that be?
It would be awesome. I think it's kind of a lot of the reading I've been doing lately is into the alternate editions as well, inspired by the novel, like with the sequence for the raft, and it's just incredible to think at how different Jurassic Park could have been compared to what we actually got.
Absolutely. It's quite dark as well, the novel.
Yeah,
like, the more I go back to it, the more I think, oh my god, it's really like really visceral. You used the word visceral earlier on, but it is a very visceral book, and you think, oh god, the bit when is it Ed Regis gets attacked by the young Tyrannosaurus Rex?
And yeah, it's basically just goading him and teasing him.
That's right. And he says like back off, like I don't, I'm not playing, and then it kills him. It's like, whoa, can you imagine that being in the film, where it's like, whoa, okay, this is suddenly like you'd think he was all right, like he's kind of knocking off like a wild dog or something, but then all of a sudden it eats him. It's like, whoa. Whereas in the film it's much more kind of like the threat is obvious and it's huge, and because it's an adult T-Rex.
Yeah.
So you do wonder what the sort of direction other directors might have taken it, because I think is it Joe Dante and maybe was it Tim Burton? I can't remember.
Yes, there was a Tim Burton script at one point. It was a bit darker, actually, yeah. Because I saw that
weird.
mentioned the other day as well, yeah.
I mean, you can't imagine a Tim Burton Jurassic Park, can you?
Oh, I reckon it would have just been like, oh, the dinosaurs are actually really living skeletons, or something really weird like that.
I think it could have been quite bizarre, actually,
Yeah.
a Jurassic Park by Tim Burton. I think it would have been more fantastical than... Do you know what I mean? Sort of like Willy Wonka-esque.
Yeah.
You know, where it's all a bit sort of OTT rather. I think it's good that Spielberg dealt with the film. It's a bit like The Force Awakens. I don't know how you feel about The Force Awakens, but I think a lot of fans were relieved that he took the helm and did that film, because it turned out pretty good. But we'll never know what other directors would have made of that first chapter. But I think it's kind of like you can go breathe a sigh of relief that episode 7 turned out the way it did.
For sure. I really enjoyed it, but there's just something about the new trilogy it doesn't sit with me. I think it's just because, obviously, as I was saying earlier, I saw what I thought was going to be the last ever Star Wars film in cinema,
right, yeah,
and now that's kind of taken the charm off of that, which actually leads nicely into the fact that I really hope that with Jurassic, if they do decide to do anything else after Jurassic World 3, they do it right, because with Disney having announced the new Star Wars trilogy already before the current trilogy's even run through, I'm really hopeful that we don't kind of just get more films for the sake of it. I want them to be quite meaningful.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've talked before about, like, after this, whether the next step is a reboot, whether the next step, like, we leave it a while and then we have a reboot, or whether the next step is some kind of TV show, or whether the next step is like a prequel. I suppose it depends on how the trilogy does, because if the second and third films don't fare as well as the first, and they completely bomb or critically get panned, and then the third one is terrible or something like that, then the appeal of doing more will kind of fade away. But if they do really great, which I'm hoping they do, then
fingers crossed.
Yeah, then maybe we will get a new trilogy. In which case, they usually know ahead of time, which isn't always a great thing, because it means that when they get to the end of this trilogy, they'll be like, like, there's another trilogy coming.
They'll
and then
leave
it's
like
kind
loose
of like
ties.
Yeah, and then it's like, oh damn, just sort out this trilogy before you think about the next one. So yeah, I do hope that this is like the World trilogy is encapsulated. In a way that kind of rounds it off. I always call Back to the Future Part 3, where it just sort of everything gets rounded off, and you're like, yes, that's the answer I wanted. It's all satisfied, and it's summed up. That's the end of the trilogy. Great. And those are the best trilogies for me. If I'm honest, Indiana Jones trilogy ends at The Last Crusade.
I agree with that. Yeah.
And I think that's how films should remain. And I've talked on Twitter about this. I don't think that films should be extended for the sake of it if it's got an ending. The problem was with Jurassic Park 3, it didn't really have an ending. It ended.
but it ended with a kind of, well, what's going to happen to the dinosaurs now, didn't it? So it left it very up in the air. Exactly. And I think Jurassic World, although it's taken a nice fresh direction, the Park trilogy still remains unresolved. So it'd be nice to have that dealt with in some fashion in this new trilogy. In the film world, so if you were to watch the films in order, it would actually work. It wraps up nicely,
Yeah, as a kind of, I don't know what you'd call a sec trilogy. I don't know what you'd call 6 films in a row. But anyway, I hope that it just wraps all of those loose ends up. And I know a lot of people are saying, well, it's wrapped up in the expanded universe and the Masrani website, and I love all that content. That's great for fans, and that is brilliant. But I think there is something to be said for having no chronology in the film universe.
I agree with that.
When you watch 1, 2, 3, then 4, and then number 5 doesn't answer any of what part 3 left hanging, then you're kind of like, oh, right. And then you never go back to Site B, let's say.
Yeah.
Like what? Like, you're going to be, by the end of the 6 films, you're going to be like, yeah, that was great and all, but what about Site B and all this stuff that happened? And you remember when Alan Grant said it's not on InGen's list and all that, it's going to really stand out if you watch them again. And I don't know, maybe that's not important to Universal anymore, but I think it's important to
The fan base.
The fan base,
Yeah.
and also just people watching it. It's like you watch it in order, you'd go, oh, okay. And maybe you'd bypass part 3, I don't know. But, I just think there's something to be said for that sort of encapsulated film universe where things are tied up.
Yeah, I agree with you, actually. I think one of the biggest things for me, and I'm going to pull up Google quickly and see if I can find his YouTube channel just to reference who I'm about to mention.
Okay.
Where is it? Let me have a little look. Clayton Fioriti, I'm not sure if you're familiar with his channel.
Yeah.
He's been doing a series going through the comic books lately. And what I really liked was how in the comic books you actually get Biosyn back, because that is still a massive loose end that we've not learnt anything out. And as far as we're aware, Universal just don't want anything to do with it anymore, do they? Which is a bit frustrating.
Yeah, I suppose it might be linked to the fact that the actor who played Dodgson is now he's now in jail, isn't he? I think
so, yeah.
So I don't know, maybe they don't want to tie back to that thread just because he was the actor. I don't know, but I have a feeling like Dodgson's going to return somewhere in this new trilogy as a new actor.
There was talk about like a casting, wasn't there, or something like that somebody thought could have been him, but then people were like, well, why would they not hire the original? And that was when it was all kind of like, I think it would be good to tie back to those old threads. I don't think... Is Biosyn mentioned, though, in Jurassic Park? I don't know if it is. It's not. We never get any context as to who's trying to steal the embryos. So, theoretically, it could be anyone. I think, off the top of my head, I don't think they're mentioned. I think people have just made the association through the books.
Okay. So, I was talking about the other day about... I think you were part of this thread where we were talking on Twitter about... how you should root an event back in Jurassic Park and tie it to the new trilogy, and how that would give a backbone to the whole series of films.
Yeah.
And we were talking about Henry Wu being in on the plot originally with Dennis Nedry.
Yeah, I remember.
I actually think that's a valid plot, and there could be something like that they're going to weave in that kind of basically ties Henry Wu back to that original plan. He left on the boat to go back, but he was maybe part of the whole Dennis Nedry plan. What if he was the guy on the phone that he calls on? Do you know what I mean? Something weird like that.
Some kind of tie, though, that brings it together, even if it doesn't quite make sense,
Yeah, it's definitely not Henry Wu on the dock, but, something like that where, it just ties it back in with the original film. I wouldn't be surprised they try and do something like that. And if that's the case, they might do something like this plot with Biosyn where, this whole... what's the name of this new guy? Lockwood?
Lockwood. Yeah.
I think, maybe Lockwood is kind of a Biosyn or something. Maybe he was...
Yeah, that was my initial theory.
Old business partner turned rival. And that's maybe what's going on. Maybe he basically wants to recover the assets, and he's kind of using this he's using this cover of a rescue mission in order to actually acquire all the assets so he can use them to his own ends. And something like that might happen. But we'll have to wait and see, because I think we'll have to wait and see what happens with the plot. But we don't want to get into spoiler territory. But yeah, I think something like that would be cool to see. Yeah. And I think if you don't reward the fans in that way, it would be like, you could have done anything, and you chose to basically disassociate yourself with the entire original trilogy. It's fair enough going in a fresh direction, but I think if you're coming from those first 3 films, to not tie yourself narratively to the originals would be like a missed opportunity.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know if this was one of the threads that we're all in on Twitter as well, but I was saying I think it was either to Fede or somebody else about the fact that Jurassic World really should have put that Hoskins capture mission and a couple of other things into an actual prologue scene, so we got some more context on how it transitioned from what it originally was.
See, now I don't know how much, you'd have to check with Jack and the guys over at Masrani, but I don't know how much was written retrospectively, so like whether they'd already shot the film and then they were kind of doing the EU stuff afterwards, or whether they would, I imagine they were doing it at the same time, but yeah, some sort of prologue. I mean, the thing is, we don't know how much was cut from the film as well, really, and whether the runtime of the film was cut down and down and down, and originally Trevorrow had in mind to do some really cool extra stuff. I mean, we know he took a picture of the East Dock under a load of leaves, so who knows what other stuff he shot and wanted to include. Also, I always find it weird that the Barbasol cryocan thing is in the commercial, and I know people say that was just purely for that commercial, but it looks like a really high production value.
Yeah, I agree with you.
And I've always thought, like, you know, was that shot when on set? Like, was that somewhere, or is that, you know, like, I can't see, I don't know, but I just can't see Barbasol recreating that whole piece of set with the mud. It looked really filmic.
It did. It looked really like it was an actual part of a film set, like you're saying.
And if you were doing that, like, as a commercial for a shaving foam ad, you would, like, it would look worse than that, let's be honest. And it had, like, lightning effects and all sorts, so it's kind of like, oh, right, well, I wonder if that was something that they had on set. I don't know. Mm-hmm. You know, whether the can was even involved, or they find Nedry's old car or something. I don't know. But I feel like maybe there was something shot there. Who knows?
It is interesting to think how much we don't actually see in the end, isn't it?
Yeah, and how much gets left on the cutting room floor. It's even the same with Jurassic Park. There's bound to be reels of footage of stuff that they shot that we just don't see, you know, the odd takes that didn't work, and, you know, things that they shot extra and then felt were redundant, and, you know, deleted scenes weren't really a thing back then because we were still on VHS, and there would have been less sort of motives to preserve those, you know, those cuts,
because there was nothing to do with them. They were just trash, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas now there's kind of foresight. Oh, yeah, keep that because that might make a good extra on the DVD, and that's valuable. So because people love deleted scenes now. So yeah, it would be cool to. I don't know if they'd ever do this, but to actually go through the archival footage and release, you know, the other takes or things that were left out, or, like, you know, I own Ray Arnold's arm, and I've got the leg of Ray Arnold as well, and in the storyboards Ellie Sattler trips over Ray Arnold's leg, and then she has a limp in the film, but
it's never explained why she has it, because it got cut, didn't it?
Exactly. So there's obviously that, and it's production use. The leg is production use. It's got the same signs of wear that the arm has. So it's obvious that they set that shot up and filmed it, but it's just not
in the final
released.
Cut. Yeah,
it's not anywhere. So the shot is there somewhere, and they obviously felt, this shot looks a bit dodgy or doesn't look right. It doesn't have a shoe on its foot. I don't know if they took his shoe. Someone said, the fact that it has a shoe is interesting because he props the door open with his shoe in the novel. He props the door of the shed open when he goes in with his shoe.
Yeah.
But to be honest, the shoe, the exposed foot looks really weird, and it doesn't have toes. So I think they probably would have had a shoe on the end of it.
Yeah, and it's just got lost in transport or whatever. Yeah.
Maybe Universal reused it for another costume for another production anyway. But it had, in the storyboards, the leg is like sticking out from under, like almost like if you imagine like a cubicle or something. It looks like it's kind of sticking out of underneath of a cubicle. So yeah, somewhere I reckon that, you know, that shot exists, and her tripping on it and hurting her ankle. But that's actually quite a hard shot to make it look right unless you're a stunt woman or something. So I mean, I'm assuming they had a stunt woman to do all that stuff, because I think there's Ellie's stunt woman in lots of shots. But it would be cool to see stuff like that, you know, takes that were just cut. They might be just one shot, so they kind of think, it's not really worth it. But I think fans would say, yes, it is worth it.
Yeah, fans would crave it so much.
Please rescan it, put it in the HD, 4K version, thanks.
But then again, knowing our track record with Jurassic box sets, it would probably be, we've conveniently found some new footage for this box set, and there's conveniently some more new footage for this box set, and I could kind of see it going that way.
Oh, but I mean, the 25th anniversary is a pretty big event coming up, and I think there's been a lot of chatter about the cover artwork on the Blu-rays, and I think, people are saying it's going to be the standard release. I really hope it's not.
Yeah, I hope there's something new.
Yeah, because it would be amazing to see, some new content, but we don't know if Universal's got that or not. So we'll have to wait and see.
I think the nice thing that I would really like to see, and I know, did you ever get the DVDs that The Sun did on Star Wars, where it was a retrospective look through with Anthony Daniels? Yeah. Stuff like that would be really good for Jurassic. Just to look back. I'm so glad you got that reference. I was going out on a whim there.
They brought out CD-ROMs as well that would have video footage on them. There was one for episode 2, and that would have been so you would have been 3 years old, I think.
Oh my god.
So but they had CD-ROMs with free AOL stuff on it, and you'd always go away AOL, and then it would have videos of behind the scenes stuff on it, and it was stuff that ended up being on the DVD, but you had it when the film was coming out. It was promo stuff. So I always used to love that stuff. There was also a CD-ROM called Star Wars Behind the Magic.
I think I've got that, possibly.
Really?
It rings a bell, yeah.
It's so good. So that was I had loads of deleted scenes and the original cantina shot in black and white. Loads of stuff on it that was, for me, was mind-blowing, because you didn't have DVDs back then. It was 98, 99, and you didn't have DVD. I think it was 98, because it had a teaser for the Phantom Menace on it, but it wasn't it didn't really show you anything. And that was mind-blowing, because that was DVD before DVD in terms of deleted scenes. And I remember showing it to my friend, and we were just minds blown, because it was this extra scene in A New Hope where he's hanging out with was it Biggs? Is it Biggs? No, not Biggs.
Is this the scene with I think it is, yeah. Is it where he's in the Imperial Academy gear? Or am I getting at concept art? Because I know they made a figure of Biggs in Imperial Academy gear on Tatooine.
Oh yes, that's what I think he is. Yes, I think it's on Tatooine.
Yeah,
and he's chatting with him, and he tells him that he's spotted a battle going on overhead, which is the blockade runner being chased by the Star Destroyer. And he looks up and says, "No, it's nothing. Don't worry." and I remember that. It was whoa. A whole new scene from A New Hope, and that was mind blowing.
Yeah,
but it was sort of technology before it became mainstream.
Something cool. I really liked with Jurassic World, and I don't know if this was actually shot on the set or if it was something that they did in studios afterwards, was the live feed they did on the website all across the park. I thought that was really cool.
I didn't know they did that. What, you mean for Jurassic Park 3 or Jurassic World?
Jurassic World. Where you've got have you actually there was the T-Rex paddock, and I remember that bit because when I first saw it, it's literally just footage of trees shaking, but I still thought it was really cool that they actually went through and took proper video. And there's one where it's members of the Jurassic World staff in their break room, stuff like that. So really doing that kind of side video stuff, I think, is always really good as well. That's cool.
Yeah, I love all that viral stuff. I think they did it really well when they did the Matrix as well. And they did the Matrix trilogy. They had a whole what was it, Metacortex or something? The company that Neo worked for in the first Matrix, and they had a corporate website for them. That was the first time where I saw viral marketing done in that way, where it was a fake company website portfolio thing, and you could go into a certain part of it and hack into it.
Oh, the Masrani backdoor.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So they did that for the Matrix, and that was a real big thing. And the fans found loads of stuff through that kind of gave them clues about the trilogy. And probably the less said about 2 and 3, the better. But they it made a really immersive experience for the fans, and that's always really cool to see.
It's quite cool that we've actually transcended onto the idea of these virtual marketing campaigns, because I've actually just written an article for the podcast, which will be coming out whenever Brad decides to post it, that talks a bit about the kind of viral campaign I would do for Fallen Kingdom if I was working for Universal, because I think there is a lot of potential for it. I mean, the one I did was based off... Did you ever see the viral campaign for Cloverfield?
Yes, yeah, I did.
It was based off that kind of blog format, because I remember I stumbled across that. I've not actually seen the film, but I saw the marketing, and I thought the marketing was really cool. I do want to check it out. It does look really good.
Yeah, it's got that sort of not. It is a little bit, but it's sort of like how can I say? Yeah, it's like guerrilla filmmaking.
It's like shot from a camcorder, isn't it? 'Cause I've seen bits
it was
of
like
footage,
Blair Witch Project did it first, but it's kind of like that was J.J. Abrams. You could see he was having fun with that, and the concept was fun. When you saw it, you were like, "Oh, that's a cool way to shoot a film. That's just a nice idea to do it that way." And it's got almost like a Stranger Things feel to it. It's not, it's completely different to Stranger Things in terms of the content, but it's when that sort of like black box mystery sci-fi kind of started, like re-emerging this, and then it was like Lost and all those sort of those ideas where the mystery is the most powerful thing. It doesn't have to be sort of in your face, VFX all the time, spectacle all the time. The more powerful thing is to not tell you information and to have the tension build up. That sort of started all of that, because by the end of Cloverfield, you some people aren't satisfied. They're kind of like, well, what was that?
Yeah,
what was that? And you have to watch the film. It is good. It's the same with the Blair Witch Project. It's kind of like you get to the end, and you're like, oh, what was that? Like, oh, and you don't know, but it's the mystery is more potent than seeing it. It's cool.
I do actually. I need to watch Blair Witch Project as well. I always remember.
It's quite a creepy film.
Yeah.
I don't tend to watch horror films.
Oh, I don't either.
But it's the kind of, I don't know. I would watch it with maybe a friend or something to take the edge off of it. But it's it's one of those films where you can see the cleverness in it, and it's the first time they did it. And it's a bit like what's his name, Orson Welles when he did. H.G. Wells'
War of the Worlds,
and he did the radio broadcast,
man.
and everyone thought it was real on the radio, and I think people went to see Blair Witch Project and flipped out because they were like, this has happened, this is like found footage, and I think even part of their marketing was like, this is a real video.
Yeah, I have actually seen clips from the marketing where they're presenting it as something that's just leaked on the web from somewhere.
And that's so freaking creepy. I mean, that's just really smart. So yeah, it's this sort of borderline where you take your franchise, you take your fictional concept, and then you present it as an event that's really unfolding in real time. And that's just a very potent idea, I think. And like you say, that would be really cool for Fallen Kingdom.
I was actually thinking about this earlier before we started recording, and on the subject of camcorder footage, how cool would it be if we saw like a viral video of somebody who had got onto Nublar after the Jurassic World incident, just going through what's left, something like that.
So cool.
Yeah. See, this
and
is
then like this footage was recovered on such a date. And
it could be presented at like an InGen board meeting or something, so it could be shown as evidence. Just something like that would be really good.
Even if it ended up in the film, that would be a wicked idea. I tell you why that is. There's something really creepy about a distance between you and an event that's caused by technology. Yeah. So like the equivalent is when they're sat in the control room in Jurassic Park and they're seeing the fences go down on their screens, or in the novel when they're tallying how many dinosaurs are on the island, and then they ask to change the maximum tally to another amount, and they see they've actually got double the amount of dinosaurs on the island that they expected. That sort of cold transmission of information through technology and you not actually being present to witness it,
I agree with you,
is more frightening than actually seeing, there's double the amount of dinosaurs in this field.
Yeah, because it becomes a oh my god moment. This has happened and I've not even noticed it, and now I'm in danger. Yeah,
and it's going on in this, cut off land. It's just a really clever concept. I just think that's really marvelous when they do that in a film.
It is because at the moment, as I think I've mentioned to you before, I'm a marketing apprentice for a charity.
Oh wow, fantastic!
Yeah, it's really fun. But actually, like, doing marketing and seeing how easy it is to kind of make opportunities if you work hard at it, it upsets me that we see so little from films, because I mean, doing like pioneering things like little clips from film sets and things like that hint at things would do so much to just add hype to fan bases, I think.
Absolutely. I think maybe what they're trying to do is imitate the success of Star Wars Episode 7, where everything was locked down and watertight until the film came out.
Yeah.
And that might be what they're trying to do in order to create a sort of a level of surprise when you see the trailer or see the finished film, and sometimes that works in their favour. It's a bit like an early release of a game, and and having a sort of a not being able to, an embargo, and not having anyone give their opinion on it before it comes out. Sometimes because the game is really bad, but sometimes it's because actually they want the secrets to remain a secret until you see the actual picture, and that's not a bad thing. What I would say is sometimes the behind the scenes stuff these days with Blu-rays is lacking. I think it's due to the fact of the kind of proliferation of like online media like Netflix and Amazon, means that actually extra content isn't what you're searching for. There isn't.
You just search for the core thing now more than anything.
You don't look for Jurassic World special features. So that kind of means that in terms of where they're getting a lot of their revenue, that's evolving and changing, and physical media isn't as money making as digital media now. So that means that the demand for special features and extra content is going down, which is that's a real shame.
It is a shame.
It was like the golden age for special features.
It would be nice if Netflix added a way to access them. This is something I had thought about in the past, actually.
Would be amazing. I think they will as time goes on. I think that as the demand grows, what they are doing is like episode recaps, aren't they? They're doing like shows where they go over an episode afterwards with the creators. That's brilliant.
Are you referencing Stranger Things by any chance?
I haven't watched. And do you know what? I haven't watched any of the recaps because I'm going through the whole. I don't know which episode I'm up to, 5 or 6, I think.
Yeah.
But I haven't watched any of the recap stuff because when the recap first turned up in my list, it was like, it was saying,
watch it all first.
No, it was something like it showed them with an image that was a spoiler in the image, and I was like,
that would annoy me so much.
I was like, wait a minute, that's the thing that I've seen introduced, but it's like bigger, and I haven't seen that yet, and. So anyway, I remember thinking, right, well, I'm not going to watch that until I finish the whole series. But I've been told does it like pick up at episode 3 or something? They start doing the recap. I don't know.
If I was you, I'd just wait till the end because the way it's set up is it is just one big discussion. It's split into episodes that happened after episode 9, and if I remember correctly, the first episode references a scene in episode 9. So I would wait till you finished.
Oh goodness, yeah. See, that's what I mean. I just hate that.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's good. It's good to have extra content like that, and I appreciate that. But it's more interviewee and a sort of celeb chat show type thing rather than here's some footage that we took on set when we were filming, and this is how we shot this, and this is how the VFX were done. I think that kind of stuff is really key. I mean, it's kind of gone the days where visual effects breakdowns are on the Blu-ray. Not always.
Never seen them anymore, really, though, do we?
No, they leave them till later because they're trying to get an Oscar for their visual effects, so they tend to do that reel later.
Yeah,
if you see what I mean. So they kind of enter for the award ceremonies a year later or whatever, and then they kind of turn up online, and you're like, oh, okay. So you do get sometimes VFX breakdowns on the Blu-ray, but they tend to, if they do surface, the good ones tend to be like a year later or so. And that used to be a big thing on DVD. You used to have like the VFX breakdown with every film that would come out. You'd be like, oh, cool, like this is how they did this and this is how they did that, and interviews with the people who did the visual effects, and it was cool.
Yeah,
it was good
I
time.
think sometimes it's nice getting to see the hard work that people put in. Like
absolutely.
I did, before I started my job, I was a media student at college for 2 years, and as part of that I actually did 2 days on a proper TV set, so seeing the kind of hard work that actually goes in behind the scenes to get everything from point A to point B and actually get it onto the screen is insane. Like, the amount of commitment these people have, starting at like 5 o'clock in the morning and not finishing till 9 o'clock at night, I think it is a shame that we are moving towards something where people are more of the attitude of they just want the product, they don't want to recognise anything that goes into kind of bringing that product to them.
Yes, absolutely. And I think it also serves as a way to inspire the next generation of creatives.
Yeah.
So if it disappears, then the people who want to work on film will have little to no idea because they haven't seen any of the behind the scenes stuff that would usually be attached with the content. So yeah, I think the only good thing that does come out of that focus on the content and nothing else is that the story has to be stronger for you to focus on the content and nothing else. So, you know, if a DVD used to come packed with special features, you'd be like, the film might be bad, but I'm going to see loads of cool special features, you know, that I didn't see in the film. So that kind of means that then the actual content of the film isn't as great, but the special features, you know, it's kind of like, it's swings and roundabouts, I suppose.
Yeah. So I noticed we're getting close to the hour mark now. I think we've just hit 50 minutes, and obviously I don't want to keep you for too much longer. So
no, that's cool.
I would say, what would be your main hope for Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom? What would you like to see?
I actually made a tweet about this ages ago, and I'm trying to remember all the things that I listed, but a lot of them have come true. I think it was like returning cast members, more use of animatronics if possible. I
think I saw this tweet, because those things definitely ring a bell.
Things I didn't like were like the hybrids. I didn't like the introduction of hybrids because like if you go back to what I was saying about the beginning about dinosaurs being resurrected, that's what I like about Jurassic Park.
Like you were saying the other day, how it would have been so much cooler if it was actually like an unfound dinosaur, weren't you? That led to extinction,
and actually was like maybe responsible for the extinction. So it was like so predatory that it wiped out all the other dinosaurs. Like how cool would that be? But you know, that's a concept that maybe they could use in a future one. I don't know if they do a reboot. But I think that, you know, there's a few things that I didn't like about Jurassic World. The hybrids, the raptors being trained. I liked the concept in the trailer, but I didn't like the way it was executed in the film. And I think actually, in terms of like the thrusts of the film, you had the I-Rex and you had the raptors being trained. I think you needed one or the other.
Yeah, I would agree with that, because it felt very split at times.
Yeah, and I knew they were trying to cram all these concepts into it, like, look, we can do this, we can do that, it's a cool film, it's okay, alright, but I felt like, you know, that was one film, Hybrids was one film, deal with that, and go in depth into Hybrids and why that's a bad idea. Training raptors, that's a whole nother film, go into another film and show why that's a bad idea or why it's a good idea. You know, kind of, I think you've got enough material to work with for two films there.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So yeah, that was my feeling. So I did say no hybrids and no trained raptors, but I think what I probably mean to say more eloquently is deal with everything in its own time and pace it a bit more. And also I said bring back like a veteran screenwriter like David Koepp, but actually David Koepp hasn't done great stuff recently. Someone pointed out to me on Twitter, so I'll concede that probably wasn't a good idea. But I think a veteran screenwriter like Lawrence Kasdan, who's doing all the Star Wars films, wouldn't hurt, because it brings warmth to the characters and humanity to the characters, because you're bringing essentially the wisdom of someone who's old into the writing fold. You know, you're bringing someone who actually knows. There's a thing about there's a quote from one of the Pixar directors about animation, and it says, "Animation is the illusion of life. If you haven't lived it, you can't make it." And I think that that's true for all filmmaking. I think if you haven't lived a life, or if you haven't got the experience to draw upon, sometimes the screenwriting shows that. And I think actually bringing on a veteran, seasoned screenwriter like Lawrence Kasdan or equivalent would bring a lot to the franchise. They'd look at the screenplay and they go, wow, you know, split the I-Rex and the Raptors into two movies, first of all. You know, you've got enough material to work with. You know, they just have that. They'd bring that experience and they develop the characters in the way that feels like they're human beings. So yeah, that was my main thing.
It's quite interesting you touching on the characters, actually, because I know when I did my 2-year media course at college, a lot of what came into it was how oftentimes characters fit into certain stereotypes, and I think I did a essay for my media theory where I was basically able to find a stereotype for every single main character in Jurassic World. So like Chris Pratt, for example, he's just your typical like badass muscly dude. There's nothing more to him beyond that, and they don't develop his character that much more beyond that.
No, and I think a lot of Jurassic World fans concede that is true.
Yeah.
I think that's a shame. I mean, I don't know. You could say the same thing with Jurassic Park, that there are stereotypical characters, but I think there's more humanity developed in the characters in Jurassic Park. Even just from the get-go, with Alan and Ellie walking up a hill talking about babies smelling and stuff, like that sort of extra...
It's more everyday life than just
breathing
certain
space,
scenarios.
exactly. Injecting that humanity. It's like the same thing with Stranger Things. You have extra information that you don't necessarily need, but what it does is it builds up those characters and allows you to relate or not, or understand them as a human being.
Yeah.
And that actually is more important than seeing a big flashy new hybrid dinosaur on the screen or talking about it. It's the building up of your relationship with those characters. And I feel like in Fallen Kingdom that needs to be established more with the main characters for us to actually like them enough to go and see them in a third film, because if they're just the same as they were in the last film, then you're going to kind of feel like, well, who are these people that I've been watching for the past 2 movies? And who are they genuinely? Who are they now?
You need to feel a relationship with the characters. You need to be able to understand and invest in them.
Exactly. And I mean, I've seen the Jurassic World 2.5 times now, and I don't feel like I really got to know... I mean, this is just my opinion. This isn't everyone's opinion, but I feel like I didn't really get to know either of the main characters. And also, I think that there is a little bit of a flaw in introducing them second to the children, because you feel like the children are the main characters, and then you're pulled away, and it's like, oh, Claire and Owen are the main characters. But I haven't really been introduced to them properly. I'm just thrown in with them doing what they're already doing, but I don't really know anything about them. And then I'd learn a bit more about them and the fact that they had a relationship once, but I don't really know either of them independently yet enough for me to understand them as individual characters, and then we just carry on with the film. So I feel like there is more exposition needed and a bit more character development needed for us to grow to like these characters, and I hope that's what Fallen Kingdom injects. I think we're in safe hands with J.A. Bayona. I think
so do I.
He's probably the man to do that. So
I think
what do you want from Fallen Kingdom?
I was just going to say quickly before I address that, you raised an interesting point about the film starting with the kids. Because if you think about it, how different would Jurassic Park be if you started with that excited grandpa scene through the eyes of Lex and Timmy? It would set a completely different tone for that film. So,
and I'm not sure I'd like it.
Yeah.
Because it would be...
It feels more like a kid's day out than anything.
It would be a childlike dream. That's the problem. And actually, that's something I've said about Jurassic World from the get-go, is it's a bit dreamlike, because you are going to something that you're aware is a death trap, because we've had 3 films of it so far. So you're kind of like, as an audience, but also even as someone who would have lived in that world, surely you would be... I don't know. People say that the time has passed and things have changed, but I still think it's like amazing that people even go to this island.
It, considering what happened. Because we know for a fact by Jake Johnston's character Lowry that even though the original was quite covered up, people found out about it. Merchandise was available for it.
So then it's like, whoa. So I think it changes the way I feel about the film. I think it's important to go through an adult perspective at the beginning, because it gives you... it's hard to say, but it gives the film more of an authority over the viewer.
Yeah, that makes sense,
And I think it's because it's told from an adult's perspective, and it's quite grave at the beginning of Jurassic World. It's like, this is really serious stuff, and now here's the awesome theme park. Whereas Jurassic World is like, this isn't serious stuff, this is a children's dream. Let's go to the park, and now here's the serious stuff, but you're in the children's dream world.
It's already set a different tone than what the film is trying to meet. I agree with that.
So you're kind of like that veil of that sort of introduction of reality is a bit later, when you're kind of already like, oh well, I'm kind of in a dream world right now, so I'm not going to dip into dealing with real stuff at the moment. And then I don't know, that's why I feel Jurassic World is very dreamlike to me. It's a bit like if you were dreaming about Jurassic Park and thinking like, what would I like to happen in a game, maybe. It feels like very much a good game narrative actually for me. But that's just my opinion anyway. That's just my feeling.
I think in terms of what I'd like to see, I'd like to actually see a lot more implications for what's happened. So, obviously we've had little hints and teasers at that already from people like Frank Marshall, but I'd really like to see more ethical debate and more kind of okay, we've made this mistake this many times now, it's had this impact. And I think a large part of that would be something to do with it going wrong, but on a much more colossal scale, where more people are put at risk and more people are exposed. So I've seen ideas getting thrown around where people are like, oh, do it like Planet of the Apes, and I think that's far too extreme. But maybe something like the San Francisco sequence in The Lost World, but where we actually get reference back to it. Because one of the biggest gripes I've had throughout is a dinosaur gets let loose in a city, and we see barely any kind of consequence because of that, when it is actually something quite significant.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's discussed in Jurassic Park 3, but it isn't really. Yeah, I know what you mean. The trauma of it isn't really dealt with in a way that's like palpable. Yeah, it's interesting. You raised some really good points, and actually, you made me think about the fact that the whole argument of Jurassic Park, the kind of the debate that Ian Malcolm has with Hammond. That whole debate would be cool to bring that back up as well, and have a round table where people are discussing where they've come and what's happened since, and what's happening now. Like, it'd be good to have Ian Malcolm in that discussion again and be like, look guys, I told you in 1993 this is what's going to happen, this is what's happened now, so we're all the way here now, so from here we've got to do this, you know, and kind of like step in and have that debate again to kind of bring that scientific, clinical, you know, theoreticalness back into it, I think. But I think there's definitely like I think the arguments from the original still ring true as you head through the franchise. Like, I mean, like you said, that discussion Ian Malcolm has with him, he says about packaging it, slapping it on lunchboxes. Look at Jurassic World. It was literally a massive merchandise thing that InGen put together, so they've not learnt from their mistakes, and I think no. I guess I mean sort of like bringing it back to a serious discussion where it's sort of like it's debated in a way that's kind of like it's kind of it becomes more exposition rather than spectacle. So like it's just I mean probably the closest scene I can think that's close to that in Jurassic World is my favourite scene in Jurassic World, which is the Masrani Claire chat at the beginning. That's my favourite scene in the whole film, because it's like it sets up the concept of the film very cleverly, and the atmosphere, the tension is great. I love that scene. That scene is brilliant, and I wish the film kind of maintained that feeling of tension all the way through. It was similar with the Wu conversation, but I don't feel that was as well written as the Claire Masrani chat. And that, for me, I was like, oh, this is back to Jurassic Park. And I was kind of like hopeful at that point in the film that it was going to be really good. But it seemed like as the film went on, it got more and more dreamlike. But that was just... I think
they killed off the character who had the best perception of it by killing off Masrani, because he seemed to be the one person who really understood as the film was progressing, oh god, we've made a big mistake here, we need to do something about it. He was also a very good representation of Hammond in a way, because he was sort of godlike and omnipresent and sort of like, oh, it'll be fine, you know, sort of that sort of mentality where it's just has no awareness of you know, reality, because he's so high up in the sort of business food chain. But I do wish they hadn't killed him off. I think I don't know, it felt very cliche. He was like, oh, I'm the only one who can fly a helicopter, I must go and do this.
I know that's
I think it was a wasted character, sadly.
Yeah, I wouldn't have had too much of a problem with him flying the helicopter if it worked out, I think, if something... But I think the fact that he dies... Yeah, I don't know.
Then again, though, if we're going to go off on a tangent with wasted characters, which we won't do because it's late, there is a whole different discussion that could be had about Zara, so...
Oh, absolutely. yeah. But I'll save that for another day.
Yeah, save that for another day. Well, it's been very good chatting to you, man. I think we've actually covered a lot of really interesting facts, and it's been good to kind of have a almost face-to-face chat about it as opposed to just Twitter. Yeah, awesome. Are there any last words you'd like to say, man?
Here's the Fallen Kingdom trailer. Let's get excited.
Woo, not long now. I agree with that. Perfect. Right.
Cool.
Thank you for being on tonight, man. So there you have it, guys. That was my special sit down with Jurassic Collectables to talk about the original Jurassic Park and what we hope to see in Fallen Kingdom. If you'd like to join in with any of the Twitter conversations we've mentioned today, you can find us on Twitter. I'll leave our Twitter handles in the show notes for this episode, and as well as that, if you would like to get involved, you can see Jurassic Collectables' latest video on his Barbasol screen accurate prop, which is a phenomenal piece. He's put so much attention to detail in, it's phenomenal. I will leave a link to that video as well so you can get involved in the conversation with that. I hope you enjoyed this special segment at the Innovation Centre, and I look forward to bringing you more in the near future.
Listen. Copies.
I read your book.
So?
I got turned around in here. What's on you? Is it bird or something?
Yeah.
Did you read Malcolm's book?
You don't want to know.
And I appreciate that.
And then my teacher told me about this other book by a guy named Becker, and he's...
Oh, it's great.
Mommy! Daddy, you've got to come see this! I found something!
Where are you?
When he and Jen cleared out, they left a lot of stuff behind. Dessert?
Sure. This is T-Rex P.
I read both of your books.
Well, that's two things that we have in common.
Hello, y'all, and welcome to the new segment, The Missing Compys. First, before we begin, I do want to thank Brad Jost and the Jurassic Park Podcast for being nice enough to let me try this segment out. And I hope that the listeners of the show enjoy it. I'm normally going to be joined by two co-hosts, Mike Vitreich and Chris Rexdell. They are not here today. This is just the intro to the segment. I wanted to real quick talk about what you guys can expect from us and, just some basic background info on myself. So I guess real quick, I grew up with Jurassic Park. I didn't see the first film in theaters, but I did get to see The Lost World. I remember my parents being very upset about the T-Rex wishbone scene, which is probably one of my favorite scenes from all the films, but I do remember them talking about the violence and how it wasn't real, as if I didn't know that at that age. But I do remember Jurassic Park. My dad was a DJ, and he had a very good sound system, and he brought home the VHS, and I was too young to see the whole thing, so he would show me pieces of it, and I'll never forget when I actually finally got to see it all the way through, and I was so scared I was shaking the couch I was on. So it kind of left a mark, and I never forgot it. And once I was in high school, I was able to go back and read the novel it's based on by Michael Crichton, and realized that there was some pronounced differences between the film and novel version, and that kind of led me to this idea for the segment, along with the release of Jurassic World, which I thoroughly enjoyed, and thought it was a pretty worthy sequel to the original film. And I know it's not it's a controversial statement, but thought it was a very, very solid film, and that led to this idea of really looking at how the original novel inspired all the films within the series that we all love so much, and really breaking down the characters, locations, and descriptions of things, and really looking at how they compare, and not being we're not going to review anything in this. We might talk a little bit about certain segments from the films, like certain scenes and what we think the differences, whether they were better in the book or better in the film, but just in a very vague sense. We're not here to review the films. We love all the films, even though obviously I don't think I'm alone in saying the third film wasn't perfect, and some people think the fourth one wasn't very perfect either, but we're not going to get into that. So this is really going to be a segment that compares the original Michael Crichton novel closely with the first film, and then actually Jurassic World, because there's a lot of things in that book that Jurassic World used that not many people in the community are really talking about, and I don't feel given Jurassic World the credit it kind of deserves. for doing that stuff. And I've heard a lot of people on the mailbag segments of Jurassic Podcast commenting on, things from the book, and it's just how like the Lost World compares to the book and the movie, for example. And I'm hoping that those people really enjoy this segment, and that's kind of who we're making it for. So I guess without going too much longer, because I've kind of been rambling here, and I don't have my co-host, guess I'm gonna say that it's for you guys. We're doing this, and if you want to leave us comments, or if you want to email us, and with things that maybe you want covered on this segment, we'd be more than happy to do that. We're gonna set up an email here. It's gonna be themissingcompys@hotmail.com, and you can email us anything you guys want to do. Just please keep it nice. We don't want a bunch of negative comments. So if you can keep it pleasant, that would be appreciated. But I'm not too worried about it with this community. The Jurassic community is a great fan community, and I'm very proud to be part of that community, and very hopeful for the future of what this segment could bring. And I guess real quick, we'll kind of give you an overview of how this is going to work. So what we're going to do is we're going to break down the first novel into chapters. We're going to do chapters 5 at a time. We will list, the chapter headings, a little bit of a summary on what happens in that chapter. We're going to go through the characters of those chapters introduced, or, keep talking about. We're going to talk about, locations too, because there's actually, locations mainly within the island, but they're pretty different from the film as far as where things take place. Of course, we'll be going down the dinosaur list, which is very different from the film. And, just our overall impressions of a chapter. My two co-hosts have actually never read the book. They've only seen the films, so they're going to be new to this. And I've read the book probably once a year for the last 12 years, so it's definitely something I know through and through. But for any of you that have not read the book and have just seen the movies, maybe this will get you guys to take that plunge and either download the book on Kindle, or you could always listen to the Audible version, which is actually pretty good. The guy that reads it, I think, is pretty decent. And if nothing else, hopefully that gets you to do that, because they really are great books. And if you like the films, I think you'll really enjoy the reading the books. There's a lot more detail, and I also think it'll give you a better appreciation for all the films, even Jurassic Park 3. So, that's the intro to this segment. I don't have any music yet. I'm not sure about copyright, so I haven't put any music on this. I'm hoping Brad can kind of help us out with that, maybe, if he wants to put a temp track on this or something. We're, still new to this whole podcast thing, but if you guys like us, we'll keep doing them. And I'm also thinking that down the line, if this is a segment that proves popular, we might do a script read for the original Jurassic Park film script that was written by Michael Crichton. And I don't think a lot of people have actually looked at that, but it's pretty interesting read, and it's actually very different from both the book and the film that we ended up with. So it might be a fun thing to kind of look through and go through scene by scene, and talk about. So again, we're kind of going to look at what the feedback is from you guys, and what you want us to talk about, and hopefully, like I said, you guys have a good time with this. We certainly are going to have a good time talking about this with each other, and with you as the community. Again, rambling here, but here I am, sitting by myself, talking to myself. That's chaos theory, right? In the words of Ian Malcolm, definitely one of my favorite characters. Yeah, well, I guess we'll end this here. I can't really think of anything else to do. Boy, this is hard without a co-host. Well, once again, if you guys want, you can reach us at that email. It's going to be themissingcompys@hotmail.com. And you can put questions, comments, and how we're doing, and anything else you'd like us to discuss, as long as it relates to the novels, because that is going to be the main discussion point here, is the novels, not necessarily the films. I mean, obviously we'll talk about the films, but this is really more about the novels the films are based off of. So, hit us up. And once again, Brad, Jost, thank you for giving us the opportunity to put this segment on the podcast. I'm an avid listener, and I've been listening to this podcast for going on a year now, and caught all up with the archive, and I'm looking forward to being part of it, and so are my co-hosts. So once again, thank you. This is Justin Kiley signing off on the Missing Compys segment.
Make sure to visit JurassicParkPodcast.com to find all our past episodes, brand new news articles, information on how to contact us, and much more. It's a great source for everything related to the podcast, and of course, Jurassic Park and Jurassic World. Head to JurassicParkPodcast.com and help us build a great community.
Anybody hear that?
Thanks for listening to the 133rd episode of the Jurassic Park Podcast. Of course, a big thanks to Tom and his guest Jurassic Collectables for another awesome installment of the Innovation Center. This episode is really a testament to how much this podcast has expanded over the years, and I'm so glad to have people like Tom and our new segment hosts for joining in on the fun. Great segment, guys. Thanks, Tom. I'll hear from you again soon, and hopefully Jurassic Collectables as well. Speaking of the new segment host, thanks to Justin as well for joining the podcast to cover the novels and maybe a little bit about how they compare to the films in the Missing Compys segment. Don't miss his own podcast, The Missing Compys, on iTunes and Google Play. He just started over there, so make sure to give him your support. If you want to interact with us, we do most of our work over on Twitter at Jurassic Park Pod. We're also on Facebook at facebook.com/Jurassic Park Podcast, and our Instagram handle is at Jurassic Park Podcast. You can listen to us via iTunes, Google Play, Podomatic, YouTube, our website, or wherever else podcasts are found. So make sure to subscribe to automatically get new episodes every week. If you haven't already, please give us a 5-star review in iTunes or a great review wherever you listen to the podcast. It will seriously help out our rankings and make it easier for fans like you to find us. Don't forget to check out JurassicParkPodcast.com for all the links you heard here today. If you want to get a hold of us, you can email us with any news stories, MP3s, comments, or if you want to debut a segment of your own, send them to JurassicParkPod@gmail.com, or you can submit questions directly on our website contact form. If you'd like to record something for the show, send it in to us and we'll feature it in an upcoming episode. If you don't have any way to record, you can give our voicemail line a call and leave us a message. That number is 732-825-7763. Thanks for listening and enjoy.